Smoke covered the sky like a heavy blanket. Fires burned across the broken city. Sirens screamed in the distance. And the ground shook as another explosion hit a building nearby. Jace wiped the ash from his face and pulled his tool bag closer. He was just a mechanic, working late to fix a power box on the side of a collapsed street. The war between alien factions had destroyed everything. But he stayed behind because some survivors still needed power to survive. He never expected to hear a baby cry in that chaos, but he did. A soft, high-pitched sound came from the shadows of a broken alley. At first, he froze, thinking it might be a trap. People were desperate now. Some would fake anything to lure others in. Still, something in the cry pulled at his heart. Slowly, carefully, Jace stepped over the debris and entered the alley. His boots crunched glass and dust beneath him. He moved past a burned-out hoverbike and a crumbled wall, and there, lying in the rubble, was a sight that made his breath stop. A dying alien woman. Her purple skin stained with ash and blood. She was leaning against a cracked wall, her arms wrapped tightly around something. Her body was shaking, her breathing weak. When she looked up and saw him, her lips moved, but no sound came. Jace knelt down. "I'm not going to hurt you," he whispered. "Do you need help?" Her eyes wide and glowing faint blue locked on his. She slowly pulled her arms apart, revealing a small bundle, a baby wrapped in thin cloth, her skin pale and glowing. She was whimpering softly, eyes half open. "Silver like liquid metal, please," the alien woman finally said. Her voice was cracked and dry. "Take her. She has no one else." Jace blinked. "What?" No, I'm just a mechanic." He looked around nervously. "If someone sees me with an alien baby, I'll get shot." But the woman grabbed his wrist. Her grip was weak, but filled with desperate strength. "She's not just a child," she whispered. "She must live." Then, with her last breath, she pressed the baby into his arms and collapsed. Jace stared at the lifeless body. The baby let out a soft cry, and her little fingers curled around his shirt. He stood frozen for a moment, heart pounding in his chest. The war hadn't touched him like this before. He fixed wires, replaced lights, stayed out of the mess. But now, he was holding something the war would kill for. He looked down at the baby. She opened her glowing silver eyes, and for a moment, smiled. A strange warmth filled his chest, like a spark from a long-dead fire. Then, from the distance, he heard heavy boots, soldiers. Voices echoed down the street, harsh and angry. They were seen heading this way. "Find the baby alive." Jace panicked. They must be tracking her. He quickly grabbed a dirty towel from his tool bag and wrapped the baby, hiding her glow. Then he dashed back through the alley, heart racing. His van was parked in an old garage 3 blocks away, but the streets were dangerous. Filled with eyes and ears, he had to move fast and quiet. As he ran, he whispered to the baby, "I don't know what you are, little one, but I'm not going to let them take you." Behind him, the alley was swallowed by the sound of marching boots. They would find the mother's body soon, and they would know someone had taken the child. Jace reached a side street and ducked behind a broken trash unit. He peeked around the corner. 2 soldiers stood guard near a checkpoint. He cursed under his breath. No way around them, unless... He reached into his bag and pulled out a mini flare, one of his old distraction tools. He threw it over the wall, and a second later, boom. The soldiers ran toward the sound, shouting. Jace didn't wait. He sprinted across the street, clutching the baby tightly. Finally, he reached the garage. He opened the rusty door, slid inside, and slammed it shut. He fell to his knees, breathing hard. The baby didn't cry this time. She just stared up at him with calm, glowing eyes in the dim light. He whispered, "What have I gotten myself into?" The baby blinked slowly, then raised her tiny hand to his face. And for just 1 second, his world went quiet. No war, no sirens, only warmth, and something deep inside him whispered, "She's not just a baby, she was something more." And now she was his responsibility. The garage was dark and silent. Old shelves leaned against the walls, full of broken tools and rusted parts. Jace sat on the cold floor with his back against the wall, his arms wrapped tightly around the alien baby. She wasn't crying anymore. She just looked up at him calm, watching. Her eyes glowed like silver stars, smooth and still like a mirror. And Jace felt like she could see everything inside him. Outside, distant voices echoed. Search patrols. Jace kept his breathing low. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone started knocking on every door. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small scanner, something he used for checking power grids. He pointed it at the baby just out of curiosity, but what showed up made his mouth go dry. Signal detected, unauthorized genetic pattern, code classified. Warning. High-level. Jace blinked. Classified. He whispered. She looked like a baby. Small and helpless, but his scanner treated her like a bomb. He reset the scanner. Tried again. Same result. He looked at her. She tilted her head and blinked slowly. Then she smiled, just a little. That smile made his chest ache. She wasn't just something powerful. She was someone. Suddenly, the lights in the garage flickered. The baby shifted in his arms, and a soft humming came from her body, not loud, but low and strange, like the sound of an old engine warming up. Then click, click, click. Tools on the shelves started to shake. Metal parts rolled off and clinked to the floor. Jace held her tighter. "Hey, hey. It's okay," he whispered, but the humming grew stronger. And his toolbox opened on its own. Wires and bolts floated into the air, spinning slowly. "What the hell?" he muttered. He watched, amazed and scared, as the metal swirled around her like a slow storm. She looked at the floating pieces like they were toys. Then, without warning, it all dropped to the floor at once. Silence. Jace sat, stunned. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just some baby he could hide and raise in peace. She was something else, something the whole galaxy might be hunting. A soft beeping came from the scanner again. New words flashed on the screen. Bioweapon prototype. Project Serapha. Do not interact. Report to Central Authority. Bioweapon. Jace whispered. He looked down at the girl in his arms. She looked up at him, blinked once, and reached for his chin with her tiny glowing fingers. "No," he said softly. "You're not a weapon." She laid her head against his chest. And for a moment, Jace forgot the danger, forgot the war, forgot the label on the screen. She was just a baby in need. That's all he could see. Suddenly, a loud knock shook the garage door. Bang, bang, bang. "Open up. City Patrol." A voice shouted, "We're conducting a sector scan." Jace's heart nearly stopped. He grabbed the baby and backed into a dark corner behind a storage crate. He tapped on his wrist pad, activating a fake energy surge near the back alley. It was an old trick, designed to pull patrols away. He prayed it still worked. Seconds later, another explosion echoed 2 blocks down. Then shouting, the patrol ran off, distracted by the false signal. Jace didn't move, didn't breathe, not until everything went quiet again. He stood, still holding the baby, and whispered, "This place isn't safe anymore." He reached into a hidden wall panel and opened a trap door beneath a tan old tunnel from the days before the war. It led to the scrap district. If he could reach the junker quarter, he might find help, or at least disappear. He climbed down into the tunnel with the baby in one arm and his bag in the other. The metal rungs were cold and slippery. Each step echoed into the deep, in the dark. The baby's eyes gave off just enough light for him to see. She wasn't scared, not even shaking. She trusted him completely, and that shook him more than any weapon ever had. Finally, they reached the bottom. Jace turned on his low-beam light and looked ahead. Long tunnel, no sign of trouble yet. He looked at her again. "What are you really?" he asked, not expecting an answer. But in that moment, the baby lifted her hand and pointed forward, as if she already knew the way. Jace blinked, then chuckled softly. "You're full of surprises, huh?" And with that, the mechanic and the mysterious alien child began to walk through the old tunnel. Behind them, the city burned, ahead a future neither of them could imagine. But one thing was certain, the baby wasn't just alien. She wasn't just powerful. She was important, and now she had a protector. The tunnel air was thick and cold. Moisture dripped from old pipes, and the floor echoed with every step Jace took. He held the alien baby tight against his chest. Each time she shifted, her glowing silver eyes lit the tunnel walls. Like two small stars in the dark, they had been walking for nearly an hour. Past broken rails, old wiring, and empty fuel tanks. This tunnel was from the old city days before the war. Back when trains ran under the streets and people lived without fear. Now, it was a forgotten path, used only by rats and men who didn't want to be found. Jace paused when he saw the iron gate ahead. He pulled out a wrench from his side bag and twisted the rusty lock. It snapped open with a loud click. He stepped through. And the baby let out a small sound, not a cry, but a curious hum. Beyond the gate was the edge of the Junker Quarter, an endless sea of broken ships, twisted machines, metal scraps, and old tech. Jace had worked here for years before he opened his small repair shop. He knew every corner, every hiding spot, every shortcut. But now it felt different. Now he was not alone. And someone or something was watching. He climbed over a pile of scrap pipes and entered the main yard. The ground was covered in mud and crushed wires. Old cranes stood frozen in the fog. Everything was silent, except for a faint buzzing sound. Jace turned to the baby, who was blinking slowly. He whispered, "You feel that too, don't you?" Suddenly, a red beam flashed past his shoulder. It hit a metal wall, burning a hole straight through it. Jace ducked and rolled behind a giant broken engine. He heard robotic voices behind him. "Target detected. Do not harm the package. Retrieve the human alive." They had found him. Not soldiers this time, track drones. Fast. Flying machines with scanners and stun weapons. They were expensive, advanced, and deadly. And they were sent only when someone very important needed recovering. The baby started to whimper. Jace pulled her close. "I got you," he whispered, but inside he was shaking. How would he get out of this? The junkyard was big, but the drones were fast. He needed help, and fast. Then he remembered old Techno Ray, an ancient droid keeper who lived in a sunken bus at the far end of the yard. Ray was half machine, half Rust, but he owed Jace a favor years ago. Jace had repaired his speech unit for free. Maybe that kindness would come back now. Jace made a run for it. Metal clanked beneath his boots. Sparks flew as the drones fired again. He slid between piles of scrap. Climbed over a fallen satellite dish. The baby in his arms stayed quiet this time, like she knew screaming would give them away. Finally, he reached the broken-down bus. Its windows were covered with steel plates. An old antenna spun lazily on top. He banged on the side door. "Ray, open up. It's Jace." A pause, then a crackling voice replied, "Go away, human. I don't fix toaster ovens anymore, Ray. I've got something there chasing me, please." A beep, a hiss, and the door opened. Jace slipped inside just as a drone zipped past the window. Inside, the bus was filled with blinking lights and dusty cables. Ray stood in the back, leaning on a cane made from a bent rifle. His eyes, two blue glass circles, narrowed as he looked at the baby. "That is not a normal child," Ray said. Voice slow, robotic. Jace nodded, out of breath. "She was given to me by a dying alien mother. I think she's part of something big." Ray tilted his head. "You're not wrong." He tapped the baby's forehead gently, and his eyes lit up with new color. DNA tag found. Royal marker detected. Subject, Serapha heiress of the Void Crown. Jace blinked. "Wait, she's a princess." "More than that," Ray said. "She's the last of her bloodline. And they'll burn this galaxy to get her back." Just then, bang. A drone fired through the side panel of the bus. Sparks flying everywhere. "Time to go," Jace said. Holding the baby tight, Ray grinned. "I'll cover you." He pressed a button on his chest. 4 mounted lasers popped out of the bus and began firing back at the drones. Jace ran through the back exit, darting through a tunnel of crushed cargo pods. Behind him, lasers lit up the fog with red flashes. The baby trembled in his arms, but didn't cry. Instead, her tiny hand reached out and touched a nearby panel. Suddenly, all the lights in the yard blinked once. Twice, then went out. A massive EMP wave pulsed out from the baby's skin. All drones crashed midair. Falling like dead birds, Jace stumbled to a stop. Breathing hard, he looked down at her. Amazed, she smiled softly, her eyes glowing even brighter now. He whispered, "You just saved us." But now he knew he couldn't run anymore. He had to find someone who could protect her, or maybe someone who could help her change everything. Asterisk, the sun was rising behind the clouds of smoke. Jace stood at the edge of the junkyard, his boots soaked with oil and sweat. The alien baby rested in his arms, calm now. But the silence around them didn't feel peaceful, it felt like a warning. Drones had crashed, enemies had retreated. But they'd be back. Whoever sent those machines would not stop. Not until they got the baby. He looked down at her. She blinked once, slow and silent. Her silver eyes shimmered like still water. Even after all that chaos, she trusted him. That trust scared him more than the weapons. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a hero, he was just a mechanic. A man who fixed broken things and lived in the shadows of war. Now, somehow, he was protecting the most wanted child in the galaxy. And he had no idea what to do next. Jace started walking, cutting through a trail of rusted engine blocks. He needed time to think, needed to find someone. Somewhere who could help as he passed an old, broken-down hover truck. A familiar voice called out, "Jace." He turned, startled. It was Mira, a fellow mechanic. Tough and sharpened, she had run a part shop in the lower city before the war ruined everything. "Mira," Jace said, trying to stay calm. She walked closer, looking at the baby in his arms. "What's that?" she asked, frowning. "Please tell me it's not what I think it is." Jace didn't answer. Myra stared at the baby. Then her face turned pale. "That's the kid they're all looking for," she whispered. "I saw her face on a bounty screen yesterday. There's a reward bigger than this whole junkyard." Jace stepped back. "She's not a bounty," he said slowly. "She's just a baby. A scared, innocent baby." Mira narrowed her eyes. "That baby isn't innocent. Jace, she's a living weapon, a royal target. A code carrier, she's a curse waiting to explode in your hands." Jace felt the baby stir against his chest. He pulled her close. "You weren't there when her mother died," he said quietly. "She begged me to save her, not sell her." Myra's voice dropped low. "Do you know what you're doing? If anyone finds you, you'll be hunted, locked up, or worse. You can't keep her safe." "Jace." He looked down at the baby. She yawned, soft and peaceful. Then touched his shirt with tiny, glowing fingers. For a moment, he saw something, a vision. like a flicker in his mind. A city rebuilt, the war ended, alien children laughing. And in the center, this same child, older, standing proud under a new flag. Hope. She was hope, not destruction. Jace blinked, gasped. The vision faded, but something inside him changed. The fear melted away. He stood straighter, stronger. "No," he said. "I'm not giving her up." Mira clenched her jaw. "I warned you," she hissed. Then suddenly she turned and fired a signal flare into the sky. A bright red line shot upward. Lighting the clouds, an alert, she'd called them. Jace didn't wait. He turned and ran, sprinting across the junk piles. Behind him, Myra shouted something. But he didn't listen. He ran like fire was at his heels. The baby held onto him tightly, her eyes wide but calm. He whispered as he ran, "I'm sorry. I trusted the wrong person." He jumped a broken wall and dropped into a dry canal. Dust flew as he hit the ground. Pain shot up his leg, but he kept going. He couldn't stop now. He had made his choice above. The sound of engines filled the air. Ships were coming. Hunters, probably soldiers, maybe worse. He found a hidden door at the base of the old water station. It was a forgotten path used by smugglers. Jace slammed his hand on the panel. It beeped once, then opened. He slipped inside, breathing hard. The walls were damp, the lights dead, but it was safe for now. Jace slid down the tunnel wall and sat. Exhausted, the baby looked up at him, no tears. Just those strange silver eyes. He smiled weakly. "I guess it's just you and me now." The baby reached up and touched his face. Warmth flowed through his skin like sunlight. She wasn't afraid, not even a little. And somehow, neither was he anymore outside. Thunder rolled as the searchers arrived. Inside, Jace held the baby close and whispered, "They're going to have to kill me before I let them take you." He closed his eyes. A mechanic, a nobody. Now something more. Because sometimes, the universe didn't need a warrior. Sometimes, it just needed someone who refused to let go. The smuggler tunnel was cold and damp. Rust dripped from the ceiling and small lights blinked like dying stars. Jace sat against the wall. The alien baby still asleep in his arms. Her skin glowed faintly. A soft silver light that kept the darkness away. He hadn't slept all night. His eyes burned, his back ached. But he refused to close his eyes because outside that tunnel, they were coming, and he knew it wasn't just bounty hunters anymore. This time, it would be soldiers, official, trained, and merciless. Not for money, not for fear, but for orders. And orders didn't care about crying babies. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed through the tunnel. Jace's old wrist pad flickered. Someone had pinged his location. He cursed under his breath. They had tracked him through Myra's flare. He stood quickly and gently, wrapped the baby in a worn cloth. Hiding her glow, he followed the tunnel until it reached a narrow staircase. At the top was a hatch that led to an old sewer maintenance room. He pushed it open and stepped inside. Dust rose in the air as he closed it behind him. The room was empty, just a few broken chairs, old lockers, and a sealed steel door. Jace scanned the lock pad. It was still functional. If he could reset the security, it would block signals for a short time. He placed the baby on a soft jacket and got to work. Fingers moving fast over the control panel. The system resisted Himmeled codes. Rusted circuits, but he knew his way around machines. After a few minutes, the room buzzed and the lights dimmed. Signal jammer active, he sighed in relief. Buys us an hour. Maybe two, he whispered. The baby yawned, blinking awake. Her silver eyes sparkled even in the dim light. Jace smiled and reached for her, but then bang, a loud, heavy knock echoed from the steel door. He froze. Another bang, louder this time, then a voice deep, mechanical, cold, opened the door. Human. "We know she's with you. You have 10 seconds." Jace's blood turned cold. He scooped the baby up and backed away, looking around the room for escape. There were no windows, no back doors, no vents big enough for a grown man. 5 seconds, he reached for his stun pistol, half charged, not enough to take down a soldier. But maybe enough to slow one, he whispered to the baby. "I won't let them have you." Her hand touched his chest again, glowing softly, and suddenly everything went silent. The room around them paused. The blinking lights stopped blinking. The air became still. Even the knock on the door vanished. Jace looked around in shock. Time itself had frozen, and in that moment, a voice spoke not from outside. Not from his wristpad, but from inside his mind. "You are the chosen guardian. She is not just a child. She is a key to peace, if you protect her. The war will end, then." Time snapped back like a whip. The door blew open. Soldiers poured in, 3 of them, armored in black, rifles raised. Jace fired one, stunned the first. The second knocked him back with a shock blast. Pain exploded in his ribs as he hit the floor, but he held the baby tight, rolling away from the third soldier's grip. The baby cried. Her silver light flared brighter than ever. The entire room lit up like a star had exploded inside it. The soldiers screamed and staggered back. Their visors shattered, weapons overheated. One fell to the floor, armor smoking. The others crawled toward the door in panic. Jace got to his feet, coughing. His ears rang. His vision blurred, but he was still standing, and the baby was fine, smiling again, as if nothing had happened. He looked down at her, stunned. "You saved me again." She blinked, then reached out and touched his bruised face. Warmth spread through his skin. The pain faded. Footsteps echoed in the distance. More soldiers were coming. But Jace wasn't running anymore. He walked straight out the broken door, smoke rising behind him, baby in his arms. He had made his choice in that junkyard, but now he had a purpose. The baby was more than just a child. She was a force, a message, a spark in the dark. And Jace was no longer just a mechanic. He was her shield, her guide, her guardian. And he would not stop, not until she was safe. Not until the galaxy heard her truth. Asterisk, the mountain wind howled like a ghost. Snow blew across the narrow trail as Jace climbed higher. His coat was torn, his hands numb, but he kept going, one step at a time. The baby, now wrapped in thick cloth, rested peacefully against his chest. Her soft silver light glowed even through the storm, like a flame refusing to die behind them. The city was nothing but smoke and noise. He had escaped again, but just barely. And now he was headed to the only place he could think of. An old research facility built inside the cliffs, abandoned since the war began. But Jace had heard whispers that inside its frozen walls lived something ancient, something that had once served the royal bloodlines. If she truly was who they said she was, the last heir of the Void Crown, then the answers were hidden there. Jace reached the rusted door at the base of the cliff. He pounded on the frozen keypad. It blinked to life, weak and slow. "ID required," a voice crackled from the speaker. Jace stepped back and gently held up the baby. "Let me in," he said. "She's the ID." The scanner focused on her face. Beep, beep, click. The door unlocked with a groan. Inside, the air was thick and stale. Old machines lined the walls, blinking faintly, frozen computers. Dead lights, dusty floors. Jace stepped carefully, his boots crunching on broken glass. He moved through the dark corridors until he reached a large, round chamber. At the center was a tall pod, covered in ice. Cables ran from it to the walls like metal vines. As he stepped closer, lights began to flicker on, one by one. The pod hissed, steam rose. Then a face appeared on the wall. Not human, not alien, but artificial. Glowing lines formed the shape of a female figure. Cold and wise, welcome heir of Thaloon, it spoke. Designation. Serapha Jace's heart stopped. She really is royalty, he whispered. She's the last one. The AI turned its glowing eyes to Jace. And you, human. You carry the bond. You have been chosen. Chosen? Jace blinked. I'm just a mechanic. Not anymore, said the AI. She cannot unlock her gift alone. Your DNA is now linked to hers. From the moment you accepted her touch, Jace looked at the baby. Stunned, she smiled and reached for the glowing wall. The AI continued. Inside her DNA is the final peace code. A message created by the Queen herself, a signal that could end the war. Shut down weapons, cancel orders, it is locked by blood. And choice, the chamber lit up. Holograms danced in the air, maps of planets. Flashing red, battle lines, attack orders, ships in motion, all connected by the same signal, the war network. If the code is activated, said the AI, it will send a pulse to every ship, every soldier. Every drone, it will override hate. But why me? Jace asked. Why not someone smarter? Someone trained. The AI paused, then said simply, because you loved her without asking for anything. You protected her before knowing what she was. That makes you worthy. A platform rose from the floor. To pads, one for him, one for her. The AI's voice softened. Once started. The merge cannot be undone. You may lose memories. Feel pain, even collapse. Are you sure? Jace looked down at her. Her tiny fingers curled around his thumb. She stared at him like he was her whole world. Not a soldier, not a king, just her person. He nodded slowly. I'm sure. He stepped onto the platform, placing her gently beside him. The machine hummed, rising in pitch. Lights circled their bodies. Lines of energy wrapped around them like vines of light. Jace gritted his teeth as fire surged through his skin. Visions flooded his mind. The Queen, her final message, a promise of unity. A galaxy where humans and aliens lived without fear. Pain seared through him. He wanted to scream. But he held on for her. The baby let out a soft sound, not a cry, but a note, a pure high note that shook the chamber. The machine stopped. Silence fell. Then light exploded. Every map in the room turned blue. The war lines vanished. A new signal burst out from the IS, core racing across space. The code had been sent. The message? Delivered. Jace collapsed to the floor, shaking, but he was alive. And she was glowing brighter than ever. She crawled into his lap and rested her head on his chest. The AI spoke one last time. It is done. You are now part of her. And part of history. The war will end. But your fight is not over. Jace nodded weakly. I'm not going anywhere. He held the child close as the chamber dimmed. Outside, stars shifted, fleets paused. And soldiers across the galaxy heard a voice they never expected. The voice of peace. Spoken not by a general, but by a mechanic. And the baby he chose to protect. The stars had never been so quiet. Orbiting fleets paused in silence. Missiles powered down mid-flight. Drones hovering over burning cities dropped gently to the ground across dozens of systems. Screens flickered, command ships froze. Soldiers looked around in confusion, and in every language. One message repeated again and again. This war was born of fear. This child carries our last hope. Let her light be the end of darkness. The message was ancient, recorded by the last Queen of Thaloon before her fall. Her voice echoed through satellites, radios, and even inside neural implants. Some wept when they heard it. Some fell to their knees. Others dropped their weapons, and in the center of it all, inside the cold mountain facility, Jace slowly opened his eyes. His body ached, sweat covered his face, but he was alive. the baby Seraphis quietly in his lap. Her glow now soft and steady, no longer just a mystery, now a beacon. Jace smiled weakly. You did it? Little one, you really did it. The AI's voice returned, gentle this time. The pulse has reached over 87% of the galaxy. Major battlefronts have gone silent. Command centers are in panic. Jace stood slowly. His knees shaking, he picked her up, cradling her like a proud father. But he knew this wasn't over yet. They won't all stop, he said. Some will try to twist this, correct? The AI replied. Some factions will see her as a threat, not a savior. You must protect her. Until she can stand on her own, Jace nodded. He wasn't just her guardian anymore. He was now part of something bigger than he ever imagined. Suddenly, the wall screen blinked, incoming signal. Encrypted, fast, urgent. The face that appeared was rough, scarred, and human. General Rika of the Outer Rim Resistance. She stared through the screen with sharp eyes. You've done something big, mechanic, she said. That signal stopped my enemy midair. Jace blinked, surprised. You're not trying to kill me. Rika smirked. Depends. You planning to blow up anything else? Jace shook his head. No, he said softly. Just trying to keep her safe. He lifted the baby toward the screen. Rika stared, stunned. That's her, she whispered. The last spark of the crown. Jace nodded. She's more than a symbol, he said. She's peace. Rika was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her collar. I want you on my ship, she said. I've got friends people who still believe peace is worth protecting. Jace hesitated. I'm not a soldier, she smiled. You're more than that. You're the man who made the galaxy listen within the hour. A stealth shuttle landed outside the cliff base. Jace stepped aboard, holding Serapha close. They flew across snowy skies, leaving behind the war-torn mountains. On board the Resistance flagship, news had already spread. People stared as Jace walked past, some with fear, some with awe. But when they looked into the baby's glowing eyes, their hearts softened. She wasn't a monster. She wasn't a weapon. She was a miracle. General Rika stood at the bridge window. Watching stars shift into view, she turned to Jace. We'll protect her, she said firmly. She'll grow up knowing peace, not fear. Jace nodded. She saved me first, he said quietly. Now it's my turn to save her future. Later that night, Jace sat alone in his quarters. The baby slept beside him in a soft cradle. He looked out the window at the stars, no longer at war, just waiting. He spoke into his recorder. If anyone ever hears this, know that I wasn't special. I was just a man who stayed behind to fix a power box. And that's where I found her. He paused, his voice shaking. She changed everything, not with weapons or armies, but with light, with trust, with love. He ended the recording and looked at her one more time. She smiled in her sleep. Jace chuckled softly. Sleep well, little spark, he whispered. Your story is just beginning, and somewhere across the stars. Weapons powered down, treaties were drafted, borders opened. And the legend of the human mechanic and the glowing alien child began to spread. Not as a tale of war, but as the first true story of hope. In a galaxy that had almost forgotten what peace felt like, asterisk,